The Benjamin Dixon Show is only possible with listener support. Go to www.thebenjamindixonshow.com to register for our blog and join the Progressive Army.
Today is Wednesday, May 31st, 2023. Thank you so much for joining me. I want to begin with the question, what do you do when you are trying to take over a country, but there seems to be an institution or two or three that's standing in your way because they have the ability to prosecute your attempt? What do you do when you had an insurrection and now people are being held accountable for that insurrection? What do you do if you want to try it again? Well, you defund the institutions like the FBI and the Department of Justice and even the ATF. I'll play clips in this segment so that you can hear from the congresspeople like Marjorie Taylor Greene, who have decided that what has to happen at this juncture in American history is for the United States to defund the FBI and the Department of Justice, no less. And if you're curious as to why, well, I mean, it's plain as day. Approximately 346 defendants have been charged with assaulting. This is according to the Justice Department website, justice.gov. Approximately 346 defendants have been charged with assaulting, resisting, or impeding officers or employees, including approximately 108 individuals who have been charged with using deadly force or a deadly or dangerous weapon or causing seriously bodily injury to an officer, all connected to January 6th. Approximately 11 individuals have been arrested on a series of charges that relate to assaulting a member of the media or destroying equipment. Approximately 909 defendants have been charged with entering and remaining in a restricted federal building or grounds. Of those, 103 defendants have been charged with entering a restricted area with a dangerous or deadly weapon. Approximately 61 defendants have been charged with destruction of government property. More than 309 defendants have been charged with corruptly obstructing, influencing, or impeding an official proceeding. Approximately 55 defendants have been charged with conspiracy. Approximately 570 individuals have pled guilty to a variety of federal charges, many of whom faced or will face incarceration at sentencing. 78 individuals have been found guilty at contested trials, with 3 who were found guilty in the Superior Court of the District of Columbia. Another 16 individuals have been convicted following an agreed-upon set of facts. 29 of these 94 defendants were found guilty of assaulting, resisting, or impeding officers or obstructing officers during a civil disorder, which are felony offenses. I just wanted to give you a quick snapshot of why conservatives are so furiously trying to defund the FBI and the Department of Justice at this point. You know, the pro-cop conservatives, the ones who never found a cop that could do anything wrong, no matter what they did, no matter who they shot, no matter who they put their knee on the neck of. Conservatives have never found a cop that they actually hated until now, and that's because the FBI are cops who are investigating the insurrection. And quite honestly, as much as I really don't have anything positive to say about the FBI, if you think about the history, particularly in the black community, the FBI right now, perhaps, and the Department of Justice is probably the only institution that's standing in the way of these insurrectionists completing their takeover of the government. So, what do you do when the only obstruction to your goal is an institution? Well, it's the same thing fascists have done historically. They attack institutions. It is strategic. They intentionally target and weaken democratic institutions and norms. Fascist movements often seek to erode public trust in democratic institutions by exploiting existing grievances and promoting a sense of crisis or chaos. This is what they do. They use propaganda, disinformation, conspiracy theories. They use anything they can to undermine the credibility of democratic processes and institutions. Because the democratic processes and institutions are the only real barriers when you have the preponderance of wealth in this country. You have the political power through lobbying and through elected officials You have your paramilitary groups that are on the ground already ready to strike. The only thing stopping them now is the FBI and the Department of Justice. So you got to get rid of them. Why do you think we've seen such a strategic attack on just generally the rule of law from individuals who built their entire platforms around law and order? All of a sudden, the party for law and order seems to be completely about dismantling that law and order system, the institutions that generate that so-called law and order. And I say so-called law and order because we've seen historically how the FBI has been weaponized, particularly against the Black community. I mean, we have recorded evidence of this. And the irony of it is now that we see the FBI is being used to prevent a coup, an insurrection. It's being wielded as it's designed to do. The Federal Bureau of Investigations, they are investigating an attack on our federal system. Conservatives are like, no. That's not really what we want the FBI and the Department of Justice to be doing. And I mean, that's an understatement. They are willing to destroy the FBI and the Department of Justice because it is legitimately looking into actual crimes committed by their constituents and people like Marjorie Taylor Greene and the rest of the conservative, hard right-leaning part of the party, which is overwhelmingly the entire party. They now want to destroy the Department of Justice and the FBI. Listen in.
Name some agencies with 3 letters that I would cut right away, and I think they deserve it, and the American people agree with it.
You would defund the FBI, you would defund DOJ, you would defund the CIA at starts and say, hey, you guys got to come and show us what you're really doing for the American people, not against the American people?
Well, to quote a great man, I would say we need to splinter it into 1,000 pieces, not just the CIA, the FBI, the DOJ. Yeah, they need to be ripped down, but then they need to be rebuilt correctly. They are rotten to the core, Steve, rotten to the core.
And specifically what she's talking about, what makes the FBI and the DOJ rotten to the core for Marjorie Taylor Greene is the fact that they are prosecuting insurrectionists from January 6th. Marjorie Taylor Greene has made a good portion of her career centered around going to the prisons and sitting with the January 6th prisoners and advocating on their behalf. And I use that word advocating very loosely because they're criminals. They are criminals who sought to overthrow the very government that has served them since its inception. Let's be extremely clear about this. The United States of America has always served white supremacy. There's no question about that. Historically, it is a fact, and that's one of the reasons they don't want history taught. They certainly do not want an accurate telling of American history taught, and so they get rid of the history books. I mean, I'm pausing for a second because I wonder at what stage do we really have an alarm go off in our head and say, oh, wait a minute, fascism is already here. Fascism has been elected into office. And now these people who are in office are attempting to destroy the institutions that would block the full onslaught of their fascist revolution. And as you'll see, it's not just the FBI, it's not just the DOJ. They also have to go after the ATF, the alcohol, tobacco, and firearms. Listen in.
And then lastly, sir, number 72 defunds the ATF through fiscal year 25. They've been weaponized like other agencies against the American people. They've been regulating the gun industry by press release and fiat and not going through the proper channels, the congressional approval process. And so with that, sir, I submit those for unanimous consent.
That was Tennessee Republican Andy Ogles, who in 2022 was attacking Democrats for defunding the police. Now he wants to defund the ATF. Why? Why all of a sudden are Republicans, I mean, I've already said the answer, but just let me pose the question again for you to consider again. Why would Republicans be so committed to defunding these institutions? Maybe it's because these institutions are investigating their attempt to overthrow this democracy, their continued attempt to overthrow democracy. And Republicans understand all they need is a majority in Congress, and they need a president, and they need the Senate if they get, and they've had those things. I want to pause and say it is not unreasonable to put into your calculus that in 2024, Republicans would have everything that they need, the House, the Senate, and the White House, along with the Supreme Court that they already have, and they will be able to pass legislation that will literally defund these agencies, and they will be able to rebuild these agencies from scratch in their image. And let's pause again and reflect. These are institutions that have never been good to Black people, to marginalized communities. And now that these institutions are being used to hold white conservatives who tried to overthrow the government accountable, well, now these institutions have to go. Listen to Representative Dan Goldman, Democrat from New York, as he explains why they are attempting to defund all of these institutions.
So why are my colleagues trying to undermine the FBI? Why are they asking to defund the FBI? It is not because the FBI is not doing its job. It's because the FBI is doing its job. And the problem they have is that the FBI is doing its job in investigating their dear leader, Donald Trump. And if you can undermine the investigator, if you can undermine independent journalists doing investigative reporting, then you can undermine our entire system of democracy. That is the authoritarian playbook 101. You attack the democratic institutions, you attack the independent, objective individuals who provide checks and balance in a democracy, and then, rather than follow the law and the rules, you can violate the law and the rules because there's no one with any credibility who can hold you in check. So do you want to know the reason why the FBI is going down in its credibility? It's because it's being attacked by people on the other side of the aisle, and that has to stop. I yield back.
Conservatives have found their latest target, no pun intended, their latest target for boycott, which is ironically going to be Chick-fil-A. Chick-fil-A has hired a diversity and inclusion executive, and this has sent a signal to conservatives that they need to stop eating the hate chicken. No, I'm joking. I don't know if it's really hate chicken anymore. We just call it hate chicken because they used to support these anti-LGBTQ groups, and the chicken was just so good that, you know, when you went there and ate it, you just felt like you were co-signing on hate. Well, the tables have turned on Chick-fil-A. Chick-fil-A has decided to just do one little thing, which is to hire a diversity and inclusion pick, and well, that has sent the conservative movement into a tizzy. They are in full boycott mode. They have finally figured out how to use the tool that Black people use to get progress in this country. And now they're using media figures like Ben Shapiro, Matt Walsh of the Daily Wire, Candace Owens, the whole Get Along gang. They're using their media influence to spread these boycotts. They started with Bud Light to some measure of success. They've gone after Target, they've gone after Kohl's, and now they're going after Chick-fil-A, which honestly, you know, they could destroy Chick-fil-A when you consider that it is overwhelmingly patronized by conservatives, because so many liberals and progressives have been boycotting Chick-fil-A for years. So it'll be interesting to see what happens with Chick-fil-A. But here's the interesting thing. Republicans, I mean, these conservatives, they are Republicans, but their identity, their ideology rather, is conservatism. They're really getting beside themselves. They're now in such a frenzy that they're destroying themselves, their own brands, their own companies. That, I mean, Chick-fil-A shuts down on Sunday for religious purposes, but that's not enough. It's not enough that the entire, you know, environment at Chick-fil-A's, they're almost religious experiences when you go in there. I mean, it is the closest thing that you could get to going to church, going to a fast food joint, but that's immaterial to conservatives, because if you break the rules of conservatism one time, if you do a single thing that is involving diversity and inclusion, if you do a single thing that actually helps the LGBTQIA community, my God, if you just put on a flag, a rainbow pin, then you have violated. I want you to listen to this clip from Anthony Bass. He's the pitcher for the Toronto Blue Jays. He shared a video promoting the boycott of Target on his Instagram. Apparently someone in the Toronto Blue Jay organization pulled him by his coattail, and he is apologizing in this clip. But I'm playing this clip because I want you to know that now that he has apologized for sharing and supporting the Target boycotts, the conservative movement is coming after him, questioning his Christianity, because clearly if he was a real Christian, there's no way in the world he would have apologized for sharing some anti-LGBTQ nonsense. Listen.
I recognized yesterday I made a post that was hurtful to the Pride community, which includes friends of mine and close family members of mine, and I am truly sorry for that. I just spoke with my teammates and shared with them my actions yesterday. I apologized with them, and as of right now, I'm using the Blue Jays resources to better educate myself, to make better decisions moving forward. The ballpark is for everybody. We include all fans at the ballpark, and we want to welcome everybody. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
And that was met with just complete condemnation and disgust from everyone from Rudy Giuliani to just random Twitter users to media personalities like the Daily Wire crew. I mean, they're really calling this. I mean, just go look at the quote tweets from the Toronto Blue Jays Twitter account and just read the comments. I can't even say some of the things that are being said about this guy from his supporters, from people who were on the same side as he was just a few hours earlier, because earlier he shared the content. I guess maybe it was better for him not to share it than to share it and then go out and apologize, because, you know, when you show a sign of quote unquote weakness to the conservative movement, then they will pounce on you. They will go after you like sharks go after blood. Yeah, I mean, so maybe he shouldn't have said anything at all, but this should show you that you have to be willing to submit to this totalitarian agenda. If you waver one bit from conservative orthodoxy, they will come after you and destroy you. I mean, they're going after the FBI and the DOJ, the ATF, and the CIA because, well, these institutions that have historically supported white supremacy, historically supported everything white conservative men wanted in this country, they decided to hold white conservative men accountable just one time. And now the entire conservative movement is trying to destroy them. So be mindful as you co-sign with the conservative movement, because ask Ted Cruz. Ted Cruz, amazingly and surprisingly, came out against the Uganda law that is going to give people life sentences for being gay. And he came out against it. Look at his mentions. They are going after him as if he wasn't an evil man. I mean, he is exactly the type of person they want. He's Ted Cruz. He does everything evil he can imagine except support the Uganda anti-gay law. And so now conservatives are trying to destroy Ted Cruz, just like they're trying to destroy Anthony Bass, just like they're trying to destroy Chick-Fil-A now, just like they're trying to destroy Disney. I mean, these people, fine, have at it. I don't really care about any of these companies, any of these institutions, or quite frankly, any of these people. Destroy your own. All because you get offended by pronouns. You fragile little snowflakes.
Go to www.patreon.com/The BPD Show and get twice the content and unfiltered interviews without any of the commercial interruptions.
And here we go. Very special welcome to our newest patron, Gavin Curran. Thank you so much for becoming a patron. This entire patron party is for you. Turn it up. Yep. Oh, and here we go. You too can become a part of this prestigious and prodigious patron family by going to patreon.com/The BPD Show, where you get twice the content, none of the commercial interruptions, and you get access to our bi-weekly patron party And I think I'm supposed to be doing a birthday party coming up here soon, but I haven't really made any plans. It doesn't matter. If you want access to any of it, patreon.com/the BPD show. And we'll be back after this commercial break, and I'll think about where I'm going to do my party at.
Welcome back to the Benjamin Dixon Show. Visit us online at thebenjamindixonshow.com.
Welcome back. Yep. I want to update you on a story from Illinois, and I want to tie it into media coverage. Along with, and trigger warning, along with conversations about sexual assault, particularly sexual assault against children, trigger warning for anyone that might be triggering for. The Illinois Attorney General stated the following: the Catholic clergy sex abuse was vastly underreported. More than 450 Catholic clergy in Illinois sexually abused nearly 2,000 children since 1950, the state's attorney general found in an investigation released Tuesday, revealing that the problem was far worse than the church had let on. This is according to the Associated Press. Attorney General Kwame Raoul said at a news conference that investigators found that 451 Catholic clergy abused 1,997 children in Illinois between 1950 and 2019. Though he acknowledged that the statute of limitations has expired in many cases and that those abusers will never see justice in a legal sense. He said the following, quote, "It is my hope that this report will shine light both on those who violated their positions of power and trust to abuse innocent children and on the men in the church leadership who covered up that abuse." We are living in this strange time where everyone on television, particularly conservative television, is screaming at the top of their lungs that we have to protect our children. But the culprits that they're pointing to are drag queens. And I've yet to see a single report of a drag queen sexually assaulting a child. They point towards the transgender community, and I have yet to see a single. I'm sure maybe there's one. Maybe there's one example. Maybe, I don't know. But I've never seen a single example of a drag queen or a transgender person sexually assaulting a child. But do you know where we see it all the time? It's in the church, particularly the Catholic Church. But I'm not going to leave the Southern Baptists out of this. I'm not even Southern Baptist. I don't know why I would leave them out of this. I'm not going to leave the Mormon church out of this. Hell, I won't leave the black church out of this. Churches, for whatever reason, attract men who sexually assault human beings. And when those institutions do nothing to regulate themselves, it requires this empire. I don't have positive things to say about this empire other than the fact that we live here and this is our home. But this empire has to be the judge, has to go in and investigate, has to go in and smoke out the sickness that is inside the rotting corpses of these churches. They're not dead yet, but they need to be. 2,000 children in the state of Illinois alone. 2,000 lives that have been irrevocably damaged. I mean, you do not recover from that without intensive counseling and years. I mean, if you can recover at all. These are lives that have been destroyed for the sexual gratification of these sick and twisted men who have political, economic, social, and quote unquote religious power. And I say quotes around that because they have institutional religious power. They don't have any kind of spiritual power. They're evil men. They're evil men who absolutely are willing to destroy someone's lives for their, 3 minutes of sexual pleasure? You know, I really do agree with one sentiment from this current era that we live in, that we really do got to do everything we can to protect the children. But the people who are covering this on a national level, particularly from the conservative perspective, Fox News spent 22 22 seconds. According to an analysis from Media Matters, they spent 22 seconds covering the story of what happened in Illinois. Do you want to know how much time they spent covering what's going on with Target and what's going on with all the anti-LGBTQ protests at Target? 2 hours, 12 minutes, and 32 seconds. Just on Target alone. Just Target. Not Kohl's, not the Toronto's Blue Jay picture, not the boycott of Chick-Fil-A, just the boycott of Target. They have spent 2 hours, 12 minutes, and 32 seconds covering it. But what did they do for the Illinois Catholic priest scandal where 2,000 children were molested? 22 seconds. That means they mentioned it and they moved on. This is the reality of the people who claim to care about our children. And let me tell you something. If you really, really cared about our children, you would dig into what's going on in these churches, in the Catholic Church, in the Mormon Church, the sexual assault that happened there, the sexual assault and abuse that happened in the Southern Baptist Church. If you really are serious about protecting children, you wouldn't spend any time talking about drag queens because they're not the culprits. You'll spend time talking about your pastor and your priest. Remember the guy from Blacks for Trump? You should remember him because he was almost at every single Trump rally. There was always one black guy with like this processed Jerry curl, kind of fried, dyed, laid to the side, kind of slick hair in the background of every Trump speech. And he had a shirt on that said Blacks for Trump. Conservatives loved him in 2015, 2016, and all the way through the Trump presidency. They absolutely adored him because he was a black man for Trump. I just want you to know, black folks, how quickly these white Christian, evangelical Christian nationalist devils will turn on you. Headline from Fox News today, just published a few moments ago, quote, Blacks for Trump leader who wants to destroy DeSantis was an early follower of deadly black supremacist cult. Maurice Simonet has attended dozens of Trump rallies and has been praised by Trump for his, quote, Blacks for Trump signs. Here's so as Fox News and the conservative establishment attempts to move away from Donald Trump in favor of Ron DeSantis, they no longer have any use for the Blacks for Trump guy. It's fun. I mean, they still have a use for black folks who will do the bidding of white supremacy. It's just their lead figurehead in this white supremacist cabal is no longer Donald Trump. They swapped out Trump and they want DeSantis. And so now this guy who's still stuck with Donald Trump because all of his T-shirts say Blacks for Trump. I'm sure he's not going to go update and say Blacks for DeSantis. Well, they've turned on him too. He's no longer useful for them. And so now they're going back to show all of the ties that we talked about years ago. Funny thing about news is all you have to do is really just remember what people did when it was current events, because people forget. And then years later, you could drop the receipts and be like, boom, look at what I unearthed. No, Fox News knew this about this man all along. They knew he was a part of some sketchy organizations before he got a part of the sketchiest organization, which is Trump. But now he's no longer useful for them. So all the information that they had on him before that they ignored, that they never talked about, well, now that's fair game because, well, he's going after their new savior, which is Ron DeSantis. Listen, black folks, humans, generally speaking, don't go out here and support the leopards eating people's faces party and then be surprised when the leopards eat your face. Don't go out here and feed everyone to the alligator and then be surprised when everyone's gone, the alligator eats you. I'm pulling up all of my dad colloquialisms that my dad used to give me, right? Don't be surprised when you lay down with dogs, you get up smelling like a wet dog with fleas. In other words, people, You can get a temporary boost. You can get financial gain going out here right now and selling out your soul for conservatism, selling out your blackness for white supremacy, selling out your pride for a boost in homophobia. You can go out here and do those things. But it is always the case. Ben Shapiro, who wears a yarmulke every day, it is no question in my mind that when the fascists get done killing all the transgender people, or let's say eradicating transgenderism, as Michael Knowles said, when they get done executing all the LGBTQ people or giving them life sentences because we got a Uganda-style bill here in the United States, don't be surprised people like Ben Shapiro and the guy from Blacks for Trump, when they're done getting rid of everyone else they hate, that they turn around and get rid of you too. Patrons, stay tuned. Everyone else, see you tomorrow.